Welcome to the Technical Writing Success Podcast, where we help you get smarter than your competition. This is episode 151. I'm Fred, and I'm excited to get into our source material today. We'll be pulling out some really actionable strategies for you.
And I'm Daphne. My job is to kind of connect these ideas back to, well, the real world of documentation and IT strategy that you navigate every day.
Okay, so today we're looking at a piece that it really flips the script on how we think about limits and maybe even failure, both in our jobs and, in our code. It's an article by a French AI expert, Elsa Sklavounou. It's called The Power of, Seeking Truth in People and Systems.
That's the one. And just for context, if you're looking it up, it was published on LinkedIn, November 7th, 2025. And Sklavounou really questions something fundamental, doesn't she? This idea that, certainty is everything, that it's like the currency, we're just swimming in information. And we tend to reward confidence, right? Even if it's maybe not entirely backed up. And we penalize hesitation.
Absolutely. So our mission today is to figure out why. Why is I don't know, which should be the most honest, maybe the most credible response. Why is it so rare? And crucially for our audience, how can we build systems, build documentation that are actually, brave enough to admit when they don't know?
Yeah, and the interesting thing is the problem doesn't start with the tech, does it? It starts with us. With human psychology.
Yeah.
We kind of have to get our heads around our own discomfort with uncertainty before we can really expect our machines to handle it any better.
Sklavounou brings up conditioning. You know how from school onwards, we learn knowledge equals competence. Showing you know stuff is key, especially if you're leading a team or a project. So admitting you don't know feels like, it feels risky, doesn't it? Like you're failing expectations. So instead, we often just talk around it or guess.
And there's a term for this, right? The illusion of explanatory depth. It's a psychological thing. It's basically this tendency we all have to think we understand complex stuff much better than we actually do, until someone asks us to explain it in detail. Think about, trying to write docs for an API you use all the time. Suddenly you realize, hang on, my actual understanding is kind of patchy. Lots of assumptions.
Oh, definitely. We've all been there. That little jolt of panic when someone asks, so how exactly does that process work? And you realize, surface level knowledge only.
And that illusion, that false confidence, it can be pretty harmful when it leaks into system design or critical decisions. People make choices based on feeling sure, not on, verified facts.
But isn't it funny? Historically, wisdom was seen almost as the opposite. You mentioned Socrates earlier. That seems really relevant here.
It really is. Sklavounou points back to him. His wisdom came from knowing that he didn't know. That humility, that admission, it's not weakness. It's actually the starting point for finding things out properly. It makes you stop, check, ask others, actually learn.
Okay, so if we humans are kind of wired to pretend we're certain, it's maybe not a huge surprise. The systems we build do the same thing.
Yeah.
Our tech, search engines, AI, you name it. They seem to reflect this human thing of hating to say, I don't know.
Exactly. They're designed fundamentally to give answers, fluent answers, consonant answers. Their value, or how we perceive their value, is tied up in sounding authoritative. Ask an LLM a question, you expect a clear, definite reply. That's the promise.
Which brings us right to a big challenge for, technical writers and IT folks listening. AI hallucination. We know what it is. The AI generates text. It sounds great, but it's just wrong.
Yeah.
But Sklavounu's point isn't just that it happens, right? It's that the design almost encourages it.
Precisely. The system often lacks a built-in way, or maybe even the incentive to signal doubt. Say, hold on, I'm not sure about this. The interface is often designed to project confidence, masking uncertainty. It creates this illusion of being all-knowing. And if you're writing docs based on these tools or deploying them in your IT infrastructure, you're basically inheriting that lack of, intellectual honesty.
And that's the real rub for us, isn't it? Our jobs are about truth, clarity, reliability. If the tool itself can't signal doubt, how do we build trust with our users? We need that line, that boundary between known and unknown.
A system you can actually trust has to have that honesty built in. Sklavounou argues the goal needs to shift. Not maximum authority, but maximum transparency. Imagine a system saying, okay, I'm not 100% certain, but here are the likely possibilities and here are the sources I used. That totally changes the game for reliability.
That sounds like a pretty big shift, though, both technically and culturally. Isn't there a risk that if your system keeps saying, I don't know, users will just, go find a competitor that gives them an answer, even if it's wrong?
Well, that's the core tension, Fred. Absolutely. And that's exactly why the cultural piece has to change alongside the tech. Sure, there's a short-term risk, but the long-term damage of confident mistakes, of eroding trust, That's much worse. Integrity has to be part of the design philosophy.
Okay, this is a great point to pause. Let's take a brief break for a special message from our producer, Kurt Robbins.
Hi, this is Kurt Robbins. First, thanks for listening. I truly appreciate your support. I want to let you know that I'm currently accepting new clients. My rates are affordable, and I have more than 25 years of experience working for enterprise companies like Microsoft, Northrop Grumman, Oracle, PNC Bank, FedEx, USAA, and Wells Fargo, among many others. If you want to improve your IT documentation and communications, hire me. I deliver fast, know how to use AI to improve efficiency and accuracy, and love going the extra mile to satisfy my clients. Thank you for subscribing and listening. Back to you, Daphne and Fred.
Welcome back to the Technical Writing Success Podcast. All right, before the break, we talked about how deep this aversion to uncertainty runs in us and in our tech. Now let's flip that. How can admitting uncertainty, admitting limits, actually be productive? Not just a problem to solve, but maybe even an advantage.
Well, uncertainty can be really generative, can it? Think about science. Every big discovery starts with a gap in knowledge, with someone saying, I don't know how that works. That I don't know forces a structured search for answers instead of just sticking with assumptions.
And you see that playing out in workplaces too, right? In project success.
Definitely. When leaders or even just team leads are open about what they don't know and they actively ask for input, that build psychological safety, and that safety is gold. It means teams feel okay questioning things, pointing out potential problems, trying new stuff without being terrified of getting it wrong. A team where everyone pretends to have all the answers. That team is heading for a fall sooner or later.
It also makes a difference for individual learning, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Actually saying, even just to yourself, I don't know this, kind of kicks your brain into gear.
Yeah, it activates curiosity, but also something called metacognition. Fancy word, but it just means being aware of what you know and what you don't know. And studies show that learners who are good at identifying their own knowledge gaps, they learn much more effectively because they know where to focus their effort. For you listening as a technical writer, that might mean focusing your research and documentation on the areas where knowledge is genuinely thin, not just where you assume users struggle.
And all of this builds credibility in a really interesting way. If someone or a system shows it, knows when it doesn't know, then when it does make a claim, when it does assert something, you trust it more, don't you? It's shown it can tell the difference between fact and guesswork.
Absolutely. So rebuilding that value, it requires a conscious shift towards what Sklavounou calls epistemic humility, which is basically just recognizing that knowledge isn't absolute, it's often partial, it depends on context, it might be wrong. And leaders need to model this, not just saying, I'm unsure, but maybe even explaining why they're unsure, showing the reasoning.
Okay, so let's make this super practical for our audience.
Yeah.
If we buy into this need for epistemic humility, what does that look like in terms of designing documentation or designing AI systems? The goal shifts, like you said, away from pretending to be all-knowing towards verifiable transparency.
Right. It means showing the workings. For example, think about retrieval augmented generation, RAG systems. Transparency there isn't just a footnote. Maybe the technical docs for that system need to specify confidence scores. Maybe if the model's confidence is below, say, 85%, it doesn't just spit out an answer. Instead, maybe it gives you structured data like a JSON object showing the conflicting sources it found or highlighting the specific gap in its knowledge.
That's really concrete. So we're moving from this sort of philosophical idea of uncertainty right down to coding confidence thresholds into our systems. And for the tech writer, that means your documentation needs to explain those thresholds.
Right.
Explain what a successful query looks like in terms of system confidence.
Exactly. And we need systems that are better at communicating ambiguity. If the data itself is conflicting, three sources say X, two say Y, the honest answer isn't to confidently pick X. The honest answer is to show the conflict, maybe visualize it. We need better ways for users to trace how the AI reached a conclusion, to see where the evidence was strong and where it was weak, like source chaining.
So the end game here is really about aligning how humans approach knowledge and how our technology does. A kind of shared ethic of honesty about what we know and what we don't. We end up documenting the limitations of our own creations, which is kind of a profound task for technical communication, actually.
That, I don't know, isn't an endpoint. It's really just the beginning, isn't it? It's the doorway to working together, to checking facts, to making actual progress. It's a form of integrity at the end of the day. And the future of trust, whether you're trusting a colleague or an AI, hinges on clearly, confidently knowing when we don't know. Think about that next time you design a knowledge base or specify requirements for an internal tool. How could you build in that honesty? Maybe a little confidence flag instead of just a potentially wrong answer. That's where trust starts.
Thank you for listening to the Technical Writing Success Podcast from Kurt Robbins, where we help you get smarter than your competition. Remember to like, subscribe, comment, and share. We'll see you next time.